I'm Louise Carver. I'm from Resolution Space. We are a small learning and development consultancy, which I'll tell you more about in a minute. And we've been asked to deliver a session for you on keeping the team performing brilliantly during change. My apologies, my colleague Kate Harper can't be here today. She's had to go and deal with a family problem, but she will provide some feedback for you if you put any questions in the chat as well when we go through those. Just a word on the QR code that's in there in the corner. If you click on that, that will take you into the notes from the session, some more information and things that we're going to talk about during the session. So, quick word about us. We are Resolution Space, as I say. We deliver individualized programs, and our passion really is about developing high-performing teams so that they can work together more effectively. And we don't do things just because they're good to do or nice to have. What we do is we try to ensure that everything we do translates into delivering organizational success. So how do you get better results through getting your teams to perform well together? We both have a background in learning and development. I've spent all my career in learning and development, the first 22 years as a Royal Air Force Training and Development Officer, and subsequently as a freelance independent learning and development practitioner. And my colleague Kate similarly spent time in the Army as a training and development officer, and prior to that was a teacher. And she and I have worked together for about 5 years to deliver what we're passionate about, as it says on the screen. And so the session that we want to deliver for you today about change, I thought I'd just set the scene with this quotation. Change is happening all the time. It does seem to be the new norm, and never has that been more so than over the last couple of years, when suddenly we had this change imposed on us and we absolutely had to do something about it. And quite often when we work with people, run workshops and we talk about constant change and what does it feel like to be dealing with change. People say to us, well, we just don't do it. We just kind of carry on as doing what we normally do. But there are times when you just don't have that option, because doing nothing is not an option. And as we saw with the pandemic, so constant change is really, it is everywhere. And it is a challenge. It's not necessarily people find it a bad challenge, but it is certainly a challenge. It might look a little bit like this. And you can go through that over and over again. So lots of changes coming in, don't really see where it's going. And then suddenly you think, okay, right, we're getting on board with this. I mean, think about something that's happening in your lives, or think something that's happened to you recently or that you're involved in at the moment, and how it feels. And layer upon layer of change coming, whether it's in your professional lives or in your personal lives. And you think that you've kind of got it nailed and you've sorted out where you need to be. And then something else will come in. And as we saw again with the pandemic, nobody knew what was going to happen there. Nobody saw it coming. Nobody knew what it was going to be like. Nobody knew how long it was going to last. But everybody adapted in one way or another. And the ones who adapted successfully found it much easier to navigate that change. So it can feel a little bit unsettling, and those of us who like certainty and clarity and change individually and in our teams, clarity and some sort of structure in our teams as well as personally, will find it quite challenging to navigate change and to work out how we're going to deal with it well. Some of you will have come across this, the change curve. It's a little bit like the grieving curve, the stages that you go through. And the people aspects of change are so important in terms of mapping how different people respond to it. And in your teams and in your organizations, you will have people going through this at different speeds, at different rates, in different ways. And the way that they go through the change is matched by the impact on their performance, their morale, how they feel about everything, how they behave towards each other, which is a really, really important part of this. Most change curves have 3 phases. This is a bit of a theory alert here. So you can say that it might be initiation, mobilization, consolidation, or it might be beginning, middle, end, or it might be end, middle, beginning. Because in reality, change that's happening in your organizations is about letting go of something. And people will cling on to that thing that they're letting go of in different ways. So there are 3 phases. And when you start off, certainly sometimes people think, oh, finally, we're doing something. And all the different emotions that people go through when they're going through this change curve. Sometimes people whiz through it really quickly. Sometimes people get really stuck in one place. And you may know people who are just really cross about it. And that kind of manifests itself in some quite hostile behavior in terms of how the change is how they're navigating that change. They might start to say, well, actually, if we just did a bit of this and not so much of that, or how about we don't do this now because it's not going to work right now, and they'll want to hold things off. They might feel a bit guilty. I actually am getting this. I think this is great. And in this world of, the connected world that we live in the social media world, how frequently do people sort of come out with something and say, actually, oh, this is happening. And everyone then sort of says, oh, that's rubbish, isn't it? That's dreadful. What on earth are they thinking of? And then some brave soul will pop up and say, actually, I think that's quite a good idea. And sometimes there's a terrible tendency for people to shout that person out or drown them out. Because they don't, because they're disagreeing. So there's a sense of guilt sometimes as well, if you are really, really getting it, or you feel you're not, swimming with the tide. Sometimes people panic. I'm one of those because I think, oh, crikey, it's change. It's feeling very unfamiliar and uncomfortable. I don't know if I'm going to be able to deal with it. What are all the things that I need to be in place? Some people get really, really stuck at the bottom of this real depression. It just seems like the whole world has been turned upside down and they can't deal with it. But then if they start to work their way through that, slowly, they'll start to think, okay, well, we need to do this, so let's just get on board with it. And then they think, actually, this is looking okay, at the moment. And now we can build on this for the future. And it's really, really important. There is a classic statement in change theory, which is don't declare victory too early. So if you have got yourselves to a place where you think that this change is looking good now and everyone's on board with it, don't stop doing it until it becomes embedded as business as usual. Make sure it becomes the way we do things around here, such that someone coming into that team will not see anything out of the ordinary, will just see things as the way we do things around here. And too often that's where change fails. People don't really get fully on board with it so that it becomes the way they do things around here. And I think it was just worth summarising really in terms of how people respond to change. Different people do progress at different rates, and some get stuck and some go backwards and forwards. So they'll go through lots of different emotions. But it's really important also to remember that the way we all deal with change is very much driven by what we've gone through in the past, what our beliefs are, what's really important to us, what drives our behaviour. And our behaviour is a manifestation of what's going on inside. But sometimes people don't see that. Sometimes we don't see it ourselves. We don't understand why we're behaving the way we are. If you're in a team and you don't understand why your colleagues are behaving in a certain way, that can be very, very difficult. That can be very tricky. And it is all about experiencing a sense of self-worth. We all like to feel good about ourselves. We like to feel that we're valued, whatever being valued looks like for us. It's really, really important that this change that we're going through, this difficult, uncomfortable time, actually enables us to feel a sense of self-worth. And that's different for different people. It very much depends what motivates different people. And again, finding that out really helps to be much more on board with that with your colleagues. So just want to do a little bit of a sort of an activity to illustrate that. And it's very much about 2 things. It's what do individuals need during change? And if you're able to, have a look through those and see which one of those, blue or red, is more like you. What is it that you're more likely to need during change? On the blue side, very much about reflecting and just being able to do things ahead of time, not being landed with something really out of the blue really quickly. And on the red side, it's, let's get on and do something. Talk to me about this. What is it we're doing? So let's just get on. Two very, very different approaches, both valid, equally valid, no right or wrong or good or bad, just different from each other. And in a way, if you like to think of it as, on the blue side, it's very much, these are people who think to speak. They have to process things and then come out with, what their thoughts are, what their feelings are. But on the red side, it's very much about speaking to think. So they start to process things in their minds as they're actually talking them out. And once you've had a chance to think about which one of those is more like you, then go on to this. Think about which one of these is more like you. How do you need information during change? Are you someone who likes the detail? Do you want to understand what's happening and why? Do you want to make connections? Do you want to have clarity? Do you want to understand the reasons for things? Or are you someone who just likes the big picture? You just need to know, right, where are we heading? What's it going to look like when we get there? Right, I've got it. I'm going to go with this. And are you able to see things in different ways? Or do you need clarity on a specific, this is what we're doing? So is it detail? Is it specifics? Is it big picture? So you can actually just get on and do something. So again, think to yourself, are you a square or are you a circle? And once you've worked through that and you've decided which it's more likely to you to be, and bear in mind with both of these sets of suggestions, sometimes it's difficult to say which side of the line you fall. Sometimes you can move between them depending on the situation. And the more senior you are in your team or your organization, the more likely it is that you will have accumulated experience and knowledge and wisdom, which will change the way you respond depending on the situation. But if you can come up with one of those which is most like you, which is what are you most likely to do during change, so that what you should then have is you should either be a blue square, a blue circle, a red square, or a red circle. So you've got 4 different types in terms of what people need and what information do they need during change, which will enable you to. Oh, apologies, that's covering up the title there. So it will come up with one of 4 different types, and you will most likely fall into one of those different quadrants. With the blue squares, change as little as possible. That's very me. That's very me. And the complete opposite of that is red circles. Change as much as possible, as quickly as possible. It's a shame that Kate's not here, actually, because I'm very much a blue square and Kate is very much a red circle. And we do use our relationship to illustrate the importance of understanding what makes people tick, particularly when they're facing something as uncomfortable as change. So for me, it is very much about, why are we doing this? And let me just work out how this, what are we taking with us from the past? So we only change what we need to. And it's got to be for a particular reason. Whereas someone on the opposite side of that would say, yeah, we like this. It's great. We're very happy to do this. Lots of different ways of doing this. Let's just think about lots of different ideas. So whilst I'm still working out, how are we getting from where we are now to where we need to be and why, Kate might be going, yeah, we can do all of this. We can do all of that. Let's think about all the things that we can do and just keep it moving forwards. And they can be quite often the people who are really selling the change, as long as they understand that other people in the team might have slightly more reservations or might need to do it in a different way. And similarly with blue circles, okay, but just need to think it through. Blues, squares and circles, quite reflective. Red squares, it's as long as it's it's meeting a need. Yeah, let's change. Let's get on with it. Change what doesn't work, though. Let's be pragmatic about this. Let's not just change for the sake of it. And see, as I say, with sometimes they can be diametrically opposed to blue circles. They just want clarity. They want action, but they want it to be based on a particular set of, a particular rationale to fix a specific problem, and then it's done and gone, and they can move on. So again, look at whichever one of those you come out at, and think about, if it's not you, if you think it's, it's not really the way that you're likely to behave, then perhaps think about, how did you initially react to the 2 previous slides? Are you behaving in a way that you think people expect you to behave, or you'd like to behave. And quite often when we do these diagnostics, I certainly have a tendency to say, well, I know I do that, even though I'd like to do the other. So just think about, where you sit in that quadrant. In terms of teams, the way that, we kind of look at this when we are working with teams within organizations, we start to look at how people relate to each other first. Some of you may have come across the work of Patrick Lencioni, who is an American management guru and expert and thought leader. And he wrote a book called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And what we focus on is actually what makes a brilliant team. So if you turn those dysfunctions around, this is, what it looks like. You have relationships based on trust in the team, who can then have constructive conflict. They can disagree well. And because they can do that, they know what they're committing to. They know who's accountable for what. And therefore, they deliver brilliant results. A little bit more detail on that. So sometimes if you have a dysfunctional team, you will have teams that don't trust each other. And this is not about saying, you'll replace the milk in the fridge when you've used it, or you'll turn up on time for a meeting. This is about, if I tell you something that's quite personal to me, or that's about a real concern or an idea I've had that's a bit, out there, am I going to be ridiculed? Am I going to be criticized? Am I going to be gossiped about behind my back? If you're my boss, are you going to mark me down for that? Are you going to think I'm not the right sort of person? So it's that trust where you can show vulnerability. If you can't do that, then it's very difficult to disagree well in a team. It's very difficult to talk about the things that mean something else to you, where you have a different view, a different perspective. You don't want to have those conversations because you don't know what the outcome will be for you. You can't trust people with the information you're giving them. And therefore, you're very much in it for yourself. In the team, it's very difficult then to say, what are we all here to do? How do we all know what it is that gets us out of bed in the morning, and what we need to deliver? And so nobody takes accountability for anything. And so you don't actually look at the results that you're working towards. You're just so busy focused on that bottom bit with the, why can I not make this person do what I want them to do? Why does that person behave in a way which I find really irritating? And it's all of that. And this is where a lot of workplace conflict comes from, because people can't have those trust-based conversations. And there's something else that we do in resolution space is workplace conflict resolution and mediation. Because when it has gone wrong, and we prefer to be in before it goes wrong doing this, if it has gone wrong, we can go in and do some conflict resolution. So we help teams to move through a sort of a process, really, of just going to a functioning team where they're getting there. They're moving from the left-hand side to the right-hand side and ending up with a high-performing team, which has built up that trust and has able to disagree well, so they all commit to the same purpose and take accountability for delivering great results. So in terms of keeping the team brilliant when change is happening, bringing those two sides together, looking at the layer around trust, people have different needs and they cope with it in different ways. Some people really just want to get on and do stuff. Other people really just need to take it on board, reflect and talk about it. And this is about what people feel and think, as well as, what they're there to do. Conflict is quite a powerful word. And a lot of the time when we're working with teams, we avoid using the word conflict. We talk about disagreeing well. And if people are disagreeing in a way which is not healthy, which is personal, which is damaging, that just stifles any team effort. It stops the team really working well together and collaboratively to deliver results. So it's building in that space and that time. And it's letting people contribute what they feel is necessary or what they personally feel very strongly about. And knowing that no one's going to criticize them or ridicule them or apply some sort of sanction for that. Because, that richness or those diverse views will lead to a better outcome because you've exhausted all possibilities. And then if you get to that stage, people will then commit to the change that you're going through, or you're planning, or you're leading. making sure that people understand what's happening, that they get the information they need in the way that they need it. Some people need the details, some people just need a clear outcome. But certainly, if you are leading change, if you are leading a team through change, the really important principle is that they can see this clear vision of the future, which is clearly and consistently communicated. So they know where they're heading, even if they have different ways of getting there. And then if you have those great behaviors in the team, whilst you're going through this period of change, you can have that culture where people say, this is what I'm accountable for. Can someone help me with that? Because I'm not sure about that. And you can say to each other, have you actually managed to get that bit done so I can do my bit of it? So it's that, but it's having those conversations in a non-confrontational, non-threatening way. So that what you eventually do is actually focus on the results. And when you are focusing on the results, again, do think about, what makes people feel valued? How do they like to be recognized? Treat people as they would wish to be treated, not as you would wish to be treated. What does success look like for them? I fell foul of this once quite a while ago, where somebody very, very introverted in my team and very, very very quiet person had achieved something quite remarkable. And in a big team meeting where there were about 50 people there, I called him out and said, congratulated him, and it was excruciatingly embarrassing for him. That was not at all what he wanted. So I did learn a little bit about working out what makes people feel rewarded and valued from that. But it is all about success, and making sure that your team performs in a way that will enable you to deliver that success. One of the things that certainly bothers people during change is that they don't have control over it. And being able to make choices about things is so important for people. People don't resist change. We change all the time. People resist having change imposed on them in which they feel they're not engaged, they're not bought into it. So as a leader of a team, it's really, really important to help people to understand what it looks like at the end, help people understand what they're letting go of and why. People have great emotional and psychological ties to the past. Help them to get over that if you can. And give them whatever detail they need so they know what's going to be happening at every stage of the way. Some people find change very, very stressful and very uncomfortable. And an exercise that you can do now if you want is to fold your arms and then unfold them and fold them the other way and see how that feels. Some people think, what's the problem? I don't understand, what you're trying to achieve with that. That's so easy. Why can't people do that? And other people are still, faffing around with their arms. So it is about how comfortable people feel, but being in control of it, having some say in what's happening is so important for everyone in the team. And if you recognize in the team that different people are differently motivated, that they have different ways of moving through change, that they experience different responses, that they need information in different ways, that they will do things at their own pace, and they can have those great conversations where they're not accusatory and they're not difficult. They are simply challenging each other in a way which enables them to give of their best to that team effort. So just really summing that up, all reactions are valid. They're not bad, good, right, wrong. People will react in different ways. They'll respond in different ways. And to get a team performing brilliantly and to keep it performing brilliantly during change, it is about considering what team members need. How do they want to be treated? What information do they need? And how are you going to balance delivering that change with looking after the team, particularly if you're someone who is either so far ahead of your team because you can absolutely see where you're going, there's a danger you'll leave them behind, or conversely, someone who is takes time to process change and you need to lead this change, and some of your team members are a long way ahead. And that's not a threatening thing. That is just the way, different ways people respond to change, including the team leader. So that's all I have in terms of subject matter.